Welcome back, friends, to a very cold January 2nd, 2019, 2 days into the new year, and I've got something fun for you today. So I'm going to share with you some tricks that I've learned over the years on the wildland firefighting ground on how to take care of your gloves, how to keep them together from getting lost, and how to make them last, well, twice as long. So let's jump into it. One of the big problems we have on the wildland ground is guys losing their gloves. What's typically been done is some gloves have these tensioners on the back, and so you take a carabiner and you hang that on there, but these are not stitched on there very good, and they're not reliable, and it's easy to lose your gloves. Maybe not such a big deal on the homestead or on the farm, but it's a real big deal if you don't have your gloves, your personal protection, PPE, equipment, on the fire ground. You could be asked to leave and kicked off. So you have to make sure you keep track of things. So what came out of that was installing these big, heavy grommets. So we're going to show you how to do that today. This is a handy deal. So I've put together some work gloves here for Jack, and I've got another pair for myself, an extra pair. And what I do is we'll put these grommets in, and then that gives you a nice place to put a beaner or just a way to keep them together. If you're going to be doing stuff where you're in and out of your gloves all day, you lay them down, you forget them, you lose them. It really is a hassle. This is a nice way to keep them together. I've always loved grommets. It's a super handy skill to have, whether you're working with cotton or canvas or leather, and we'll go about doing that, and we'll put together a second set here. I'll show you how to do it. I've put together this cool old box, and in that I keep my, I guess, kind of repair tools. My granddad used to do that. He was, of course, lived through the Great Depression, and they were very economical. Being a good Midwestern person who tend to be a lot more economical and have better common sense than us folks born on the West Coast. I don't know why that is. Mrs. W. and I were having that conversation this morning, comparing her West Coast friends versus her Midwest friends. But I keep in here, of course, my grommets, grommet pieces, and then we've got our punch and our anvil. Or here's the punch, actually. This is I don't know what you call that side of it. And then various little straps and different things. And it's kind of a handy little thing to grab when you need to make repairs. So let's get into the individual components, and I'll show you how these go together. Your grommets are made up of a couple pieces. Sometimes you'll see them in brass. Brass is nice because it won't corrode. These old ones that I've got have been pretty good too. They have almost some kind of like a nitrite coating or an anodizing on them. I've never had them rust before. But you've got this side right here that has a bit of a cone in it. And then on the back side here, you can see is the washer, for lack of a better word, with the teeth in it that bite into the material that you're grommeting, and so it won't spin or move. And the idea is it sandwiches the leather, what we'll be doing today. And then if you look on the back of this here, you'll see also that same shape on the mandrel, which is a concave, and we'll mash that down. When we're all done, we have a very clean, nice-looking grommet. And you can see how it was compressed there on the back. That won't pull out and will last a long time. I'll bring you all over here to the anvil. When you're punching your leather, you want a good immovable space. Grab a chunk of 2x4. If you don't have an anvil, just throw it on the ground or the back of your vise. And we're gonna make that first hole here. So we don't want to go all the way through both. Oh, look at all the tags. That's what the government. These are government issue style gloves. These are really good gloves, a lot better gloves than you're going to get at your hardware store. I'll explain why here at the end. So you're going to just open that back. You want to go through one single layer, not through both of them. And you're going to place that, place it about 1/4 inch or so inside of the seam on there, because that grommet is going to be a little bit big. And we'll give it a good strike. And that will make a really nice, look at that nice clean hole on there. It's very satisfying punching holes in leather for some reason. I remember my granddad, he always had some leather tools around, and he had, everything was done. They didn't have a very big house, and everything was done on the kitchen table. And I remember punching holes in leather. As I was growing up, he had given me a leather belt and made a buckle out of a piece of deer hide. I was really proud of that. I wish I still had it today. And I'd wear that to school, and he would, as I got bigger, I remember on that kitchen table, he would, add a hole to that belt with his little punches, and as I got bigger and bigger, and that's quite a fond memory. So now with our holes, we can go set up our grommet. So to do our grommets, we're gonna take our 2 pieces here. Now, you're doubtful you're going to be able to find these heavy industrial ones. These are old USA-made ones that are probably antiques. This, of course, is the anvil. Boy, that's a quality item right there, isn't it? I don't think you're going to find one of those without looking pretty hard. The grommets you're going to get most of the time now at your hardware store are going to be a shadow of quality of these, but they'll still work for gloves, and they're typically going to be brass. So we're going to lay our, you can see how that lays in there, and that with that concave deal, that's going to kind of follow the shape of it. You want to be sure and put your grommet in the smooth or the finished side right there through the top of the leather. That way that's going to show, and that's going to look a lot nicer than the inside. So if we look at my wildland gloves as it presses in there, well, these actually are brass. They're a coated brass. I can see the brass coming through. You want it to come on the outside, and now you can see why we held that hole back a little bit. That way it doesn't overhang, and it just looks nicer and doesn't get into that piping on there. So we'll put this on here like this. We're just going through the single layer, and then when we put the ring on there, and then give it a whack, and you'll feel it seat. And now we have that will be all splayed out there, and these are nice and smooth, and I haven't found them to be a problem. Or if sometimes folks might think that that'd be a little bit cold on your hand. I don't know. I have this, maybe it's a weird sensory issue that I have, but I don't like the glove on my wrist where I'm moving all the time. So you'll often see when I wear gloves, I will roll them like this. I like that better, and that gets that grommet off my skin if it is indeed cold. So if that's a concern for you right there. But now we have a nice clean looking hole on our glove. Let's do our other one here. I've always liked selling grommets. I think they are such a cool tool. They're really good for tarps. Granddad always had the old tarps, you know, the oilcloth tarps. I don't remember him with the plastic ones too much, but I don't even know if you can get those anymore. They were waterproof. We used to go elk hunting. Sometimes we'd have to leave like the night before because we're working guys. We didn't have a lot of time off, and we'd drive as far as we could, drive all night when we got tired. Hotels and things like that was out of the question. That was never in the budget. We'd pull over alongside the road, and we'd take one of those old green tarps and just roll it up kind of like a taco and take our sleeping bags to get in there and sleep for a few hours and then continue on. That sure looks nice, doesn't it? Those in there, and now Jack's got a good pair of gloves that he can keep together. When I put them together, I typically go back to back like that, and then I'll have a beaner. And you can put that on your belt or store them and hanging, and they're just a lot easier to keep track of, for sure. I have, in a pinch, I've cut holes, taken and sliced a little square hole in there with my pocket knife. But what I found is that ultimately it rips out, and it won't. You'll lose your gloves. So this is definitely a better method. So I mentioned earlier about some tricks that I've learned to make your gloves last a lot longer, and that is, of course, one of my favorite things in the whole world is Obanoff's heavy-duty leather protectant, made in Idaho by good folks. I'll tell you, this is what we use on wildland firefighting boots, and it is a all-natural mix of a top secret ingredient, but it has something to do with beeswax and such. But it's really a delightful moisturizer because it stays in its firm state until it gets a little bit of heat. Just the warmth from your fingers will cause that stuff to start to melt. And what it does is it nourishes the fat. It restores the fat in the natural oils that we have in leather. What happens to leather is it's cow skin, and when it's on the cow, of course, it receives nourishment and fat, and that's what keeps it soft and supple. If you notice your gloves, especially if they get wet and dry out, that they'll get really hard, and they'll actually even shrink up a little bit. And that's because every time you get it wet, it's leaching those natural oils out of there, and you need to restore them. So whether you're talking about boots, or you're talking about a lady's purse or belts or anything like that, you want to get into a habit of putting that moisture back into those gloves. An interesting thing, the reason why a lot of those gloves that you get shrink up when they get wet is because of some cost-cutting measures from the manufacturers. Perfect example are those Wells and Lamont's leather gloves like you get at a hardware store, or the 3-pack that's so popular with a lot of guys at Costco. And it's a good deal, and they're pretty good gloves, but what you'll notice is when you get them wet, they'll shrink, and then they almost don't fit. The reason why they do that is, well, when they originally start with the hides, they wet them down and then they stretch them really, really tight before they punch the patterns. And the reason for that is that it makes, well, they get more gloves out of a hide. So it's basically comes down to economics. The downside is they kind of kick the can on down the road to us, and we get a product that's not as good as it could be. So by applying the Obanoffs to your leather gloves, it does three things. It makes them way more wear resistant. They'll last, what I found, probably almost twice, sometimes 3 times as long by doing this than they will if you don't apply them. Also, it almost acts as a waterproofing, and I mean, it's not going to be waterproof as a leather glove, but if you're if you're out and you got stuff and you grab a bar or grab something, a tool that's got moisture on it or a little bit of dew, it does keep them from getting super soaked a lot better. Not waterproofing, but definitely makes them more water resistant. And the best thing is it just makes them soft and supple. The more you put it on there, and it'll contour to your hand, and they'll stretch, and they're much less likely when they get wet to shrink up. It's just a wonderful product. I also like the fact that it's all natural. That way we don't have to worry about something leaching into our skin. Your skin is your largest organ, and anything that you put on your gloves is going to go into your hands. And I really don't like the idea of that silicone spray that's real popular with a lot of folks. I know maybe the verdict's still out on that, whether it's good for you or not, but why take a chance when there are better products out there that actually function better, and 100% that they're all natural and they're not going to give you any problems down the road. So so the Obanoffs is really good for that. I'll put a link to that. I think that they probably sell that stuff on Amazon, but a great product. It'll make your gloves more comfortable and last a long time. That's pretty much the extent of my knowledge when it comes to gloves. I'm going to share with you at the end of the video some of the high quality footage that we took of the New Year's Eve party. I know that those of you who followed the live broadcast had made some comments that the quality was really, really bad and basically unwatchable, and I understand that. It's just we have satellite, that's the best we could do. So I'll just put a little highlight reel on there here we'll attach at the end. As far as also as New Year's resolutions go, I've had some folks ask, are you going to do a video on New Year's resolutions, or what can we expect in the new year? Well, I'm not. I don't know that I've ever been able to keep a New Year's resolution, and I guess I'm wise enough now to know that it's not going to happen. So if I was going to make one, it would be continuing on with this goal that our family has of simplifying our life and getting down to the real basics of what's really required. I'm trying to get rid of in some categories, 75% of the things that I own by mostly just giving them away to folks in need or folks that could use them, neighbors and friends. And it's been very, very liberating. If you notice from the shop, it's starting to come along, and I've gotten about half of the stuff out of there, and it's really made a positive change in my life. When I think about this stuff and I'm going through things, and today I was kind of going through leather gloves and ski gloves, and I had this huge box of gloves, and I just don't need all those things. And a lot of them, some of them are worn out, or some of them are no longer relevant, or some of them are just duplicates of things that someone else could probably put to better use than me. And what I guess what I'm going to try to focus on this year, and my family as well, is buying less things, but buying quality. As I'm always fond of saying, my granddad was a very minimalistic guy, and he had one pair of gloves and they were good. He had one hat and it was good, and one coat and it was good, and his life was very simple and not overly complicated. What I find, and especially it's funny with those 3-packs of Wells and Lamont gloves that I was mentioning earlier, is that you have so many pair that you don't look after them and you don't put them where they belong. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I don't need to really fuss or have a place for those gloves or look after them, because I know I got another pair over here, and I got maybe a second pair over here, and you have more, but you never know where anything is kind of what my experience has been. So every single aspect of my life, every day we're talking in past videos about my 3 things about when you go into one area, always put 3 things away where they belong. And I'm kind of doing that. In addition to that, I'm going along and very systematically, I'm going through socks. go through the socks. If they're low quality, if they're things I don't like or they don't fit or they're singles, you know, why have them around? Let's get rid of them. And when we do replace things, we'll buy the best quality we can and few of them, and have a place for everything and just really simplify our life. So if I were to make a New Year's resolution, I guess that's what it would be. So what's coming up? Well, immediately, I promised Mrs. W that we would, I'd remodel her bathroom. It's one of the last portions of the home that we haven't got to, and it's actually pretty shabby. It's there's a hole in the drywall, and the fixtures are pretty well worn out and no longer working anymore. And we're gonna do that. So my dad came over for Christmas, and you know, he's the genius contractor, and he kind of laid everything out for us and gave us some good ideas and told us how we can do a $30,000 bathroom remodel for about 4 or 5. So we'll be sharing that as well. So we're going to go up there today and measure out for the tile. We'll be putting tile floor and tile shower, and it will look really fancy, really nice. But the fact that we're doing it ourselves and using some budget stuff, we'll be able to do it without costing too much. So that will be coming up here soon. We're supposed to start, I think, on the 5th or 6th. So we'll bring you along for that. So, all right. Well, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, click the thumbs up. We appreciate your support. And we all, of course, wish God's blessing on all of you. And we'll look forward to an exciting new year. And I'm excited where the channel is going to go this year. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later.
How your logs doing, Jack?
Good.
How many did you end up cutting?
I think about 11 or 10.
You got some smokers.
That the winner is 35. 35, really? Nice. Okay, first place, second place.
Nice job,
All right, so paper, rock, scissors for third. On my mark. Ready, set, go.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Time. 1, 2, 3.
Dang it.
Third place. Woo!